RobLive here. Looks a little different, right? We're in the CMAC Studios here in the beautiful downtown area of Fresno, California today. This is our first time using the studio, so be kind. It may not look exactly as we typically have it, but we're a work in progress. Jim, how do you feel about it?
It's different. I like it, but we have to get used to it. I like the AC, buddy. We're in the AC. Feeling good. We got a great guest.
Yeah, so the backstory, you guys, is that Jim built the original studio in a warehouse, and so the loft area, as you know, heat rises. So in the summer, it's pretty tough to be in there, and we didn't want any of our guests to like pass out, or from heat exhaustion. So we have the beautiful nonprofit here, CMAC in downtown Fresno. It's a wonderful organization. We're going to leave the link to everything about CMAC for those who want to get involved. They have studios, they have full-size studios, they have cameras, all kinds of beautiful equipment that you guys can borrow if you are into the whole podcast or even creating movies, short films. Check out CMAC. So we'll put the link, and we're grateful for them today. So on the show today, little background, I went to the Latino, Central Valley Latino Leadership Academy. I was selected, and I'm very honored to be selected. And one of our leaders just gave me this vibe, like, you know what? There's a story behind Andrew, and I believe he's also an individual who's he loves to serve communities and the youth specifically. And I just picked up that vibe. So welcome, Andrew Garcia, to the show.
Thank you.
So we met because you are is it executive director, or what's your role with Central Valley Leadership?
I'm the program manager.
Okay, so you're the program manager, and we have four sessions, right? And the cohort right now of 38 potential leaders from the Central Valley, and you help facilitate that whole process, right?
Yes. So we put it all together, and then on the back end, we keep them engaged. We provide opportunities for alumni to, still continue that dialogue, because, our sessions, they're great, and people leave wanting more. So we do a lot of stuff on the back end to try to still continue conversations that are being had.
I appreciate that. So when I was there, right, I was like, okay, Andrew, you were presenting some stuff on leadership, and you had mentioned some of the work you were doing, and my RobLive antenna went up. I was like, oh, we got to get this guy on the show. So after a couple of phone calls, right, thank you for being here. So I want to start from the beginning because I feel like our journey is always shaped by our upbringing. So where were you born and raised?
So I was born in Visalia, California, but I was raised in Woodlake, California.
Woodlake, that's right. We talked about Woodlake.
The big block. Everybody knows it, Tulare County. And my upbringing was probably similar to a lot of people's. I mean, both my parents are system impacted, so they've been incarcerated before. My family members were gang impacted. I had a lot of, family members that were involved in gangs, exposed to violence, and then I was just kind of that kid caught in the middle of that, And so, too often, I've seen police kind of in and out of my grandma's house, or, I've had friends who lose their lives to gang violence, or, and I still see individuals that I knew when I was younger. Now I go back to Woodlake, and, they're just not in a good space, whether it be they're living on the streets now, or, they're just, couch surfing, or, they're struggling with substance abuse. And so I've seen a lot of the symptoms of, that lifestyle, but it really shaped my empathy for it too, because I could have easily been down that path as well. But society sees gang members as bad people, menaces to society. But that was my uncle, that was my dad, that was
the people who raised
people who raised me. And it's kind of like you can't say I'm in this great space, but then also say the people that raised me are these horrible people. So it really gave me that level of understanding of where's that middle ground where we can work and where we can really, provide services and fill those gaps, because they are great people. And I take that level of humility when I work, because I'm working with families who are scared to ask for help, or, they're used to cops coming to their door, or they're used to social workers coming, and there's a stigma of, taking away their kids, right? And, and I respect both professions, but in my work, I like to be that person that floats in the gray area. And I tell my students, and I tell the families that I work with, I'm not a cop. I'm not here to jam you up. And I'm not a social worker. I'm not here to, take your kids away. And once we kind of break those down and they kind of see who I am, it makes it all the easier. But it really comes from just being, where I'm from, and seeing things that I've seen in my life, and, knowing that some of my friends went one way, but I'm good. I'm here today on RobLive talking with you guys.
Amen. What I mean? So some of the terms that you brought up may not be familiar for our viewers. So can you define system impacted for us?
Yeah, so system impacted, it's just the language now. It's really saying that you've had either, yourself or individuals who have been part of the criminal justice system or the juvenile justice system, whether it be, I'm system impacted in the sense that I've thankfully never been incarcerated, but because of those around me who have, like people that I needed for support, that impacted me as well. So it's a great net term, a catch-all term to really cover those people, because incarceration, there is trauma not just for those who are actually going in,
Yeah.
but those that are left behind. When you're having to wonder why your dad's not home, or you have to write letters to your mom or whatever, right? And so
Yeah.
it's the other aspect of it too. So really being system impacted is just those who have been directly by being incarcerated, or even those who are having to see that and witness that and go through that.
When you were talking about, seeing your parents incarcerated, I kind of had a flashback because there was this period of my life where people that were very close to me were incarcerated. And I remember the hardest time was always because what happens is, a bus will drive you in, or you'll go up to the gate, right? And then they check you out. And there's a whole process if you're visiting someone. And you get in there, and then you see the person you're visiting. And typically it's like an open table, right, with different areas. And to me, the hardest part was always leaving, because I remember driving away and looking back at the building and saying, I have a loved one in that building, and they are not going to be able to come home with me. And again, this was with 20s, 30s. You were a child, right?
Yeah.
Visiting your parents. And then how did you cope with having to leave them behind and just live your life while they're in the inside?
Yeah. For me personally, I actually never visited them when they were incarcerated. My mom, thankfully, she never did too much of extended period of time. I think the most she's ever done was probably like 3 months.
Okay.
And I think hers, and that's when I work with my students. So, I always, I feel for my female students as well, because, my mom was someone that was kind of just caught up in that mix. A lot of the stuff that she picked up was because of, my dad or whatever the case, right? So, and I have sisters now. So I'm always looking out for them, because they kind of get easily caught up in that mix and can get into trouble that was because of somebody else or somebody that they're with or dating at the time, right? So my mom, never really did too much time, thankfully. So she was home. But my dad was always in and out in my early age of life, and it was just writing letters. But, I mean, even when he was out, he wasn't really around, so I was writing letters to a stranger, really. And it was interesting because I think up until recently, we've developed a really good bond and a lot of forgiveness there.
Yeah.
I remember when I was younger, I was asking for like a BB gun. I wanted a BB gun for Christmas, and I was asking him, and he was locked up, and he's like, "I'll get it for you." And it was crazy because I think about 2 years ago, now as an adult, he finally got me the BB gun for Christmas. But it was more of a symbolism, like, hey, we're in a good space now.
Yeah.
But to go back to your point in terms of coping, I mean, I had a really good support system.
Grandma, did you mention your
Yeah,
grandmother?
yeah, my grandma. I remember, I played sports, and I played football, so we'd get into like November time. It's cold. My grandma was sitting out there at all my practices. She was holding down the fort when
With Lake Tigers, right?
yeah. So it was like even like during Pop Warner, my grandma would go out there and watch me practice, and she would always tell me, she's like, I have arthritis and my bones get stiff during the coldness and stuff. But she was always out there, never complained, and
Is she still?
yeah, she's still alive. Yeah, her
What's her name?
name's Maria.
Maria. Shout out to Maria.
Shout out to Maria. Yeah.
Thank you for raising a wonderful young man who's now, we're all benefiting from Andrew's wisdom.
Yeah. So definitely had a good support system. And then, I mean, for better or for worse, I had a lot of friends that I would go hang out with. And
Now, were they involved in sports as well, or just strictly the gang life?
no, a lot of them were in sports. I hung out with a lot of my teammates from basketball, football. But then, you had your friends. And I feel like, especially in small towns like that, people were kind of doing both.
Yeah.
Especially coming up. And then they get to about middle school, high school, and then they start leaving the sports alone and they go do other things. But, we're just knuckleheads, just getting in trouble. I never, when I work with my students, I never try to boast myself up more than what I was.
Yeah.
I know, one of the things that I've seen in this work in different places, not specifically just Central Valley, but, I've done some work in LA as well, is that certain service providers, when they work with their, whether it be students or the adults they work with, they try to relate to them too much because they try to, say, oh, I was this big bad person. I was in level 4, level 3, and like,
Yeah.
and it could be true, but it's like there's a fine line between glorifying
Yeah, I can see that.
and mentoring and providing resources to navigate. And so, for me, I tell them, hey, dude, I've never been to county, bro. I've never done some of the things some of these kids are doing. You know what I mean? But I say, I've been a kid in your shoes, and I know how to navigate it. And I've learned enough being around certain individuals that there's a way for you guys to make it out safely, and be able to be in my shoes, in 10 years.
Yeah, I think when you do any type of work with youth, right, there's always this reflection on our own. And sometimes we remember it differently, right? And then our friends humble us like, bro, you weren't that good, right? But I think it's really important, right, that if we're going to do this work, we have to constantly revisit our upbringing, what we went through, and try to see it through their eyes.
Yeah.
And so it seems to me like a lot of what you do is also self-exploration. Like, okay, what was Andrew like at 16? And I whenever I do that, I feel like I'm more patient, have more grace for students, because I'm like, oh, wait, I made a worse decision. I can handle what they just decided to do for themselves. And it doesn't mean like it's permanent, because, we made it out. Now, I want to make sure I get this right, because I wrote it down. And, of course, my phone closed on me. Reedley Peacebuilding Initiative.
Yes, Reedley Peacebuilding Initiative, RPBI.
When did that become something that you created? Was that after high school or college?
So for me, this is in all honesty, I've actually barely been on the team for about a year.
Okay.
So it was started back in about 2017. So I have my bosses. His name's John Swenning and Jay Carter, and they got into the work through their various means. But prior to this, I really used my lived experience to kind of further myself, self-exploring, right? I spent about 5 years in the mayor's office of Los Angeles, and I worked in a program called the Gang Reduction Youth Development Program. So that
in Los Angeles.
Yeah. So
that's a big
difference. So yeah, basically when I turned 17, things that happened in the community. There was shootings that happened while I was in middle school, high school, and like I said, I never was involved in that type of stuff. But I've gotten into my fair shares of fights and stuff. But for the most part, stayed just trying to focus on school and focus on basketball and football. But once I hit 17 and I had the opportunity to go to college, I was like, I need to get out of here. I did the reverse of what people.
Were your grades pretty decent?
Yeah, actually, my senior year, I graduated with a 4.0.
What?
Yeah.
Oh man, we gotta clap that up. I ain't seen a 4.0 since.
Yeah.
Was there a Mustang 4.0? Maybe that was the only one I saw.
Yeah, it was definitely, it was interesting because, during my upbringing with school, that was the one thing my mom preached to me was you don't have to live like this forever. Go to school, do better.
You were focused then. You were locked in.
Yeah, I really saw my way out, and I dove into it, and I got good grades throughout my high school, middle school, but I was going home, sometimes with no light on or no gas on.
That's what I'm saying. How'd you stay focused and disciplined with everything happening at home?
I just I think from an early age. So I'm the oldest sibling. My next sibling is 9 years younger than me. So there's a big gap.
Yeah.
So I really came home to be, they call it nowadays a parentified child, right? So
I haven't heard that term, but I know exactly what it means.
Yeah. So parentified child is basically like you go home and like you're their sibling, but you're also like a little mini parent too. You have to look out for them, and I take it as a blessing. It's given me a lot of great life lessons and a lot of deeper appreciation for my mom because she made things happen, and I don't know how she made them happen. So I just saw that, and I was like, yeah, there's no way I'm gonna really disrespect my mom by continuing this cycle. And so I was like, I need to go just focus, tunnel vision, and do something with myself so I can be able to help everybody else out.
Man, 4.0. So you pretty much had your choice of where you wanted to go after high school.
And I actually ended up going to a CSU. I went to Cal State LA.
Cal State LA,
Yeah, Cal State LA right there.
Is that Alhambra?
Alhambra area.
Alhambra
area, East LA, getting towards East LA, like El Sereno and all that.
It's crazy as my uncle, we had an uncle who lived in LA, and when you go to Disneyland, right, you stay at your uncle's house, and so we pulled that move, and he lived in a cul-de-sac. And in that cul-de-sac, there was a fence, and then there was an open field, and right there is the Cal State LA dorms.
Yeah.
Like it was walking distance to the swimming pool. And So we kind of grew up visiting Cal State LA on a regular basis because we go see him. So I know exactly where that campus is. That's a beautiful campus.
Yeah, I loved it, and it was a good opportunity. I did the reverse
Did
of
you stay in the dorms, or where'd you stay?
Yeah, I stayed in the dorms. Yeah, I stayed in the dorms, and I did the reverse of what people did in LA. Not because they're coming over here now.
Oh, okay.
I went that way, and I was like, dude, I got to get out of here because
Was there a lot of like when you're like, hey, where you from, Andrew? Woodlake, and they're like, what's a Woodlake?
oh
Like,
yeah,
did they know the area?
not at all. So I would tell them first. I would tell them, I would say Central California. They're like, well, what is Central California? People in LA and even up north, they think it's just San Francisco, LA. I'm like, there's a lot in the middle, man. There's a lot in the middle. Because then I would just say Northern California because they didn't know what a Central was. I'm from up north, and then they're all like Sacramento, and I'm like, nah, dude, like 4 hours down, bro. Like, yeah, it was interesting because I really got to explore and just focus on school, doing the same thing because coming from Woodlake.
Yeah.
And coming from a lot of these small towns in the valley, everybody knows everybody's business, man. Everybody knows your tia or your uncle or whatever, right? So and then you add the influence of gang culture and stuff. There's kind of times where I'm like, oh, you're so and so's nephew, huh? And I'm just like, yeah, bro, but like, what's that got to do with me? You know what I mean? I'm just trying to like chill, And so I, found an opportunity to go and just be a stranger. Amongst 4 million people, I was like, no one knows who I am. I get to just
redefine yourself,
make authentic relationships with people, build friendships, and
so it's the best thing for you.
Yeah.
So, how is Cal State LA Andrew different from Woodlake Andrew?
I would say it actually allowed me to, accept my cultural roots even more so.
Yeah.
Coming from the valley, and I said this in our leadership meeting as well. I started in 3rd grade. I had a teacher who told all of us that our future was going to be along the 99 freeway. And it was either going to be a field or it was going to be a prison somewhere off on the off the 99.
Man.
And she was very adamant. She said, I hate gangsters and you guys are wearing your baggy pants, and we're 3rd graders, mind you. We're 3rd graders. She was telling us.
Saying all this in 3rd
She
grade.
she said her godson had got stabbed by some gangsters, and she was
so
very
she had that anger,
very descriptive, telling us as 3rd graders what it was. And so she started labeling us a long time ago, and not realizing, hey, we have baggy pants because we need these to fit us for a couple of years. You know what I mean?
I brought these for my brother.
And they're like, yeah, you know what I mean. And so like little things like that.
Wow.
And so I realized that there's for better or for worse, there's a level of us having to kind of censor ourselves here for the sake of other people's comfort.
Yeah.
But being in LA and learning more just about history and just the counter movements, to be proud of who we are, I just came back with like a sense of fire. Like, no, this is who I am.
Yeah.
And yeah, I come from a gang impacted community and family, and I embrace it because there's beauty in it as well. And I've been in different spaces, through Cal State LA, my internships, and eventually when I worked in the mayor's office. And I always carry this with me, and I say it, first and foremost, and it's that it's not illegal to be a gang member. It's illegal to commit crime. And people like step back and they think like, oh, yeah.
I've never thought of it that way.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with being a gang member, just so long as you're minding your own and you're doing your own thing. And like 90% of them are. Some of them have kids now. Some of them are working.
Yeah.
I know a lot of them that work in the field still. It's the ones that are committing crimes. Like, yeah, there's an issue there. And, it humanizes people that come from the lifestyle. So when you say that, it's like, you know what? Yeah, it's the same thing. We all, even within our indigenous roots and our cultural roots, we've always formed tribes, or even nowadays. I'm a Raiders fan. If I want to get together with some Raiders fans and go drink and
There's
have a
3
good
of us
time.
in here right now.
There it is, man.
I don't know about Juan. Who do you like, Juan?
Raiders all the way.
Oh, are you?
Raiders all the way, yeah.
There's 4 of us right here. Look,
All
there's a
Raiders.
mini tribe.
Yep.
Yeah, and he
He's
said
the
it. He said
second
it.
one.
He said it with reluctance. I don't know if it like it's the there it is already. The
I'm already in the
influence.
black hole.
Yeah.
Dad's a Niner, so.
So yeah.
Okay, so I was gonna ask you. Oh yeah, Homeboy Industries.
Yeah.
So did you do any work with them? Because I feel like that's right in your area.
Yeah, so they had a contract with the city of LA because they're a nonprofit, so they get different contracts, different grants from different places.
Yeah.
And so they would do a lot of our reentry work, and we've done trainings there at Homeboy, and I have a good relationship with folks over there.
For people, viewers, Homeboy Industries is a nonprofit that was created by Father Boyle. What's his first name?
Father Greg.
Father Greg Boyle, or what was it they call him, G-Dog or something? They had a nickname too with everybody there. And I believe, correct me on this, but he helps to take gang members, give them jobs, kind of give them a sense of purpose that is beyond just the banging, and try to improve their lives. Is that around what he does?
Oh yeah, yeah. That, and I've followed his work for a long time,
Yeah.
and because it resonated, obviously it hit home for me. And one of my quotes that I love the most is that I don't work with gangs, I work with individuals. And
With individuals.
because not everybody's gonna want the help, and sometimes in this work, and even with our stakeholders, right, when we have to, like when we have city partners, they have an idea what this work looks like.
Yeah.
For some people, they think that we can just wave a magic wand and tell this person he's not a gang member anymore.
And then that,
But that's not how it works.
no.
Because if you know a bit about the culture of it, I'm not trying to get anybody disciplined. I'm not trying to get anybody hurt or their family hurt. So I like the idea that I'm working with this individual and just, what do you need? Do you need a job? Do you want to go to school? Maybe
Yeah.
do you need mental health services and you're just scared and you need somebody to kind of be that soft handoff for you, and to work with you and to kind of unpack what's going on. So never in my role when I work with anybody am I trying to tell them to say you're no longer a gang member, because I know that comes with a lot of consequences.
Yeah.
And so I'm just there to really fill up their time and give them value to their life that they didn't know that they had, because a lot of them are just walking around hopeless. But if they can see something to work for,
Yeah.
they love it.
Wow. That's deep. Another bumper sticker. Right?
Right, there you go.
So what was the Father Boyle quote again?
I don't work with gangs, I work with individuals.
I don't work with gangs, I work with individuals. That's beautiful.
But it is the stereotype to take away the word gang. I mean, obviously that it's a different word in the dictionary than what it really means. It doesn't say thugs. It doesn't say a group of thugs together like raiders, whatever. It says it. I would imagine using the word gang member, it has such a negative stereotype definition to it. It's hard to get away from that.
Well, how do you reference each other within the gang? Just brothers, or?
I mean, yeah, it just depends. Among internally, I feel like they don't ever call themselves like fellow gang members. You know what I mean? They're just kind of like, "What's up, homie?" Like they're just homies, or
Yeah.
and then obviously, to other people, they just kind of say all gang members, and then what comes with gang members is all the negativity. But like I've said, like if there's crime, I can guarantee you it's probably being done by just some repeated folks. A lot of them are just trying to get by, and so we work with all of them, even the ones that are having hard time staying out of trouble.
Yeah.
Eventually they come to a point where they're just tired of getting in trouble, and they're sick and tired of being sick and tired. So they eventually come forward and want some help. And
Yeah.
when we have to answer to stakeholders, whether it be city folks or school, sometimes they think it's like a quick fix, or when we might be working with somebody for so long and they're doing so well, and then we come back over the weekend and say, hey, your client just got in trouble. He did this X, Y, or Z. And it's almost like they tell us to almost discredit us. But it's like, hey, man, like, healing and being restorative is not a linear movement. It's ups and downs, just like life,
Like 3 forward, 2 back.
Yeah.
Right?
And then I'm quoting Manny. And Manny, like Father Greg. He relates it to like alcohol addiction, where being in that lifestyle, there is addictive qualities to it. Much like a drinker who might relapse, that just means that he drank again. Whereas someone that's trying to get better within the gang lifestyle, that could mean that he actually might have hurt himself or somebody else in the process. But does that mean that he's not going on the trend of recovery still? Like, we just got to work with them when they have those slip ups. And so
Meet them where they're at. Wow. So to me, it's always interesting and inspiring to watch someone leave the Central Valley, acquire some knowledge, some skills, some abilities, and then bring it back. That's to me, most people like, okay, well, it's bigger and better out here. I'm just going to stay out here and deal with this. It looked like LA was a good experience for you. What drew you back to the Valley?
that's a good question. I don't believe in coincidences. I'm a man of faith. I wouldn't be here, if there wasn't a higher purpose in my life or a higher being in my life. And so, everything happened, and it was so seamless. Because I was in LA, so in my role, I would coordinate gang intervention and prevention services, and then we would do crisis response.
You know, I forgot to ask you, who was the mayor at the time?
So I worked under Eric Garcetti, and then I
Okay.
worked under Bass as well.
Okay.
And so with that, it was beautiful because you just worked with community. And even during times of violence, one of the biggest skills that I learned was how you network and the parallels between networking in City Hall and networking in the community. And so I learned a lot, and it was amazing. And I had a great time. And then I was, living in LA, different world.
Yeah.
But
Built a whole new life for yourself.
I was seeing things that were going on back here, and I'd come visit, and people that I knew were either getting into trouble or things that happened to them, and so I was like, man, there needs to be something more formalized out here, because they do have their programs within school districts, in Tulare County, and they do great, but and then there's those gaps to fill during the summer or after school hours too, you know. They serve their purpose and they're great. And I think I got spoiled being from LA because our service providers were 24/7. Someone could call you at 3 a.m. and say, "Hey, I'm having a hard time. I'm thinking about relapsing," and then we'd go open the doors for them and have a meeting with them and try to talk them down. Or we'd have a shooting unfortunately happen, and there's a lot of community members that are upset, and so we would deploy out and network and communicate with the community, try to provide victims of crime services. So we were all the time. And then out here, it's like summer's out. You might have a couple little events during the summer, but for the most part, these kids if they're not out in the fields working, they're putting in work. You know what I mean? So it's hard to keep that steady pressure on these kids and on those communities to keep them engaged when outside of school or during the summer. And I saw that out here, and so I was like, I want to come out back home eventually. And I didn't know eventually it was gonna happen so fast. Because I went to a community violence intervention conference in LA. That's where I met Manny. And I saw somebody from Woodlake Unified was at the conference. Like, who's from Woodlake out here? Like, met him. And
Can you give a little bit of background on Manny?
Yeah. So Manny, he's been doing this work for 27 years out here in Central Valley. He's done it in Tulare, Visalia, just all around. And he's a great partner in the work. I met him at this conference. And he definitely kind of motivated me to come back home without even knowing so, because I met him there. And we were just talking about Woodlake and, this spot, I was like, yeah, bro. I used
The
to
Dead Rat.
the Dead Rat. Yeah.
You heard about the Dead Rat?
The Dead Rat. They don't sell liquor there because they don't have the license, but they sell beer there. But if you bring your own liquor, they'll mix it for you.
Do you know the owner there?
Yeah.
What's the owner's name?
I don't know them any. I think it's changed owners.
A few times.
But it's been there forever.
All right, Woodlake. Hey, shout out to the Dead Rat. We're gonna come visit you guys.
Yeah.
And get a mixed drink or what?
Bring our own stuff.
Play some pool. It was interesting because then we started talking about programming, and he's like, "Yeah, I do this work with some of these young men in the middle school." He was showing me a bunch of pictures, and then I was like, "Hey, bro, can you go back to that picture right there?" And he went back, and my little brother he's one of the kids that he worked with.
Oh,
yeah,
man.
I was like, "Oh man, I gotta go home, bro." Like it just
your little brother was in the picture.
Yeah, my little brother's one of the kids that Manny does some of his young men groups with. I was like, "Oh man, I need to go home." And I always felt that way because I'd hear about what's going on back home, and I'd have a sense of survivor's guilt because I was in LA doing my thing in the mayor's office, and I never felt like happy about it really, because I mean people back home would say, "Hey, like you're doing it, bro," but I was like, "Yeah, but like all my family's over there, and like there's still struggle out there." Something just in me was like, I need to go home. I just don't know how. And
you know what's crazy? Because you mentioned this earlier about saying that you don't believe in coincidence. Someone could just easily write that off and go, "Oh, what a coincidence! My brother's in the picture," and just move on. But because you believe in a higher purpose, you gave more meaning to that sign that was speaking to you to say, "Hey, you're talking about family. Here's a picture of your brother. These are the people that I really want to impact."
Yeah.
And now I have an opportunity to go home and do that.
Yeah, it was great because I saw what's going on in LA. I love it. I love the work that's going out there. All the service providers I worked with, all the people I worked with alongside in City Hall, they have a well-oiled machine out there. I was very spoiled to see like what was going on, and then coming back home and seeing like all that we don't have. So, I was like
you're now bringing
that I'm now bringing or hoping to bring, because I left there saying, you know what, I'm leaving but they're gonna be more than okay without me, because they do such a great job out
Yeah,
there.
go
So-
where you're needed.
So I was like, I'm gonna come back, and with what I've learned and how to just navigate those spaces, hopefully bringing something out here. And then, one night I was just scrolling through, and mind you, around this time, just going back to coincidences, I was like, I bought a house in Visalia, and I was gonna use it as a rental, and I bought that in October of 23. And so I had bought it. I was gonna use it as a rental. I know you have to let some time pass before you can start renting it out, putting it on the market. So I would come back periodically to just check up on it and do some maintenance on it. And I mean, it was almost like it was planned perfectly, because by 2024, 2 months later, a job opportunity came up, and
In Visalia?
one Reedley.
Oh, yeah.
But I was like, I already have a house. I don't have to worry about moving back. I had bought the
That's
house.
crazy.
I had bought the house hoping to just use it as passive income,
Yeah.
but I just moved into it. And, it came up around January. I started doing the job hunt. It wasn't until about, I'd say maybe May, that I got the offer. And then I would start in August, because they base it on the school.
Was
calendar.
Manny aware of all this?
Yeah, I was keeping in touch with them, and so he was tripping out. He's like, "Oh man, you're coming back," and because I'd been doing a lot of job hunting from that January 24.
Yeah.
I was just looking around, and nothing really coming to fruition, or nothing that was going to really be feasible, I would say.
Kind of spoke to you.
Not even spoke to me, but I mean, I feel like the work that we do is so like important, but then you see the pay, and
Yeah.
it's like $20 an hour. It's like, well,
That's crazy.
you're working with people that are going through crisis. or
Saving
they-
lives.
yeah. And then, I could go just work at In-N-Out, it's down the street from my house too. You know what I mean? It's like,
Yeah.
and it's, I saw that, and it wasn't like, I felt for those people. So I was like, I want to come and speak for those people too, that this is what it could look like, and this is what you could demand. And I remember talking with Manny a lot, because Manny's always, he's humble, and I'm humble too, but I told him, I was like, hey man, it's not bad to pay yourself. It's not bad to want to be paid for this, because you have to be
Important
able,
work.
you have to be able to take care of yourself, because then you have to be able to take care of the other people that you're working with. It's kind of like an airplane, you know what I mean? You have to put your mask on first.
Yeah.
And so, but we get in the service provider mindset, and I feel like a lot
Big
of us
time.
as Latinos, I think it's because we try not to shake things up too much. We're just happy with what we're given. It comes from, generational trauma of just like being told that you're not supposed to be here. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So we're just like, hey man, I'm just thankful for this.
Under the radar.
Under the radar,
It's
just
gonna cause any waves.
yeah. But it's like, nah, man. Like, we're doing some important stuff, and it's like,
Yeah.
we're not asking for millions of dollars. We're just asking to be able to take care of ourselves. And then if someone comes to us and says, hey, bro, I need like something to eat, I can take care of that and not worry about my fridge at home. You know what I mean? And so that's one thing I pushed. Was like, hey, like we need to take care of ourselves too. And we formed a little collective out here with folks, just getting together and meeting, like with Ed Campos. I don't know if you know Ed Campos.
Yes.
He does some work out there, like in Kings County.
Oh
area.
my God. Ed Campos, he works with Kings County, and he was teaching us the AI and the technology stuff.
Yeah.
That's crazy. I just talked to him like a couple days ago
Yeah,
on
so like,
Facebook.
yeah, he was there. He's been there
What?
going. I've been going. Manny. We had some folks from VUSD who are doing the similar work, coming to our meetings. I don't know if you ever met Anthony Ortiz Jr.
No, I haven't met him.
So his father founded California Youth Outreach out up north, like in Salinas area.
Is he here in the valley?
Yeah, so he lives in Reedley. He does like telework. So he works from Reedley because they have an office here in Fresno.
Yeah.
And he does a lot of the data stuff, but he knows a lot about data reporting and programs. So we're like, dude, we gotta all get together and just talk about what we
Super
can do.
team.
You know what I mean? Just really build up that team. So it started just like, I was like, dang, like my network's building out here. Even though I was from here, my network in LA was extensive just from the work I did and where I put myself. And I had to come back home and say, like, I was almost like, dang, I gotta, start all over again, even though I'm familiar with this place. But it was so easy. And then I finally found the job in Reedley, and it was restorative justice. And I was like, shoot, I'll try it out. You know what I mean? So I applied, and I got the job offer. And they read through my resume, and he called me. He was like, I just want to make sure that you're like a real person. I was like,
It's
yeah.
What are you doing back here?
I was like, yeah, man. And then so they brought me on. But prior to that, I kid you not, because they told me around May that would start in August. And then in June is when my girlfriend had told me that she was expecting. So it was just like perfect timing. Like,
Awesome.
yeah, we just welcomed the birth of our son in March, this past March.
Oh, March?
Yeah.
First child?
Yeah,
All
first
right.
child. Yeah.
What's his name?
Mateo.
Mateo.
Yeah, so it's been a blessing. I mean, everything just
Yeah.
happened so boom, boom, perfectly. Everything lined up. And I got the job, and then I got told, we're expecting our son, and then got to work, and then just everything was just so seamless. And that's why I believe that there's no coincidences, because
No, I'm with you.
yeah, if it was a coincidence, it would be choppy, like a coincidence here, coincidence there. No, everything was just, kind of just gave it to me. Here's the path.
And the thing too that I think is important is that we have to be open to the path.
Yeah.
Because sometimes we look at the path and go, oh, well, that's what a coincidence. That's kind of weird. And then move in a different direction rather than gravitate towards it. Right?
Yeah, no, it was amazing. And like I left, with a little, heavy heart from LA because I had a lot of good relationships, but I mean, it's only 3 hours away. I've kept in touch with a lot of folks over there, and I still rely on them when I'm doing this work out here.
Yeah.
Because a lot of them become mentors, and I've always been a big person that as I come to do the work here, I let people know that I'm tapping into folks over there because I come from a place of humility, and I've come from nothing, and I'll never be like, hey, I gatekeep all the information. Like I never want to be the smartest person in the room.
Gatekeep. That's I keep hearing that a lot lately, right? And for our viewers, that's essentially withholding or creating an obstacle for someone else in any particular industry or even with information. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, and it's actually, it's unfortunately really prevalent out here when folks are trying to, rise up in the rankings in their professions, or, I've seen people hold on to their jobs and never want to leave because it's a good gig for them. And, if they do, they're doing it with, hey, I know somebody that I want to keep this, when there's someone else that can easily take that spot. But it creates like a lateral, just, a plateau for folks. And I've seen that a lot of people are, hesitant to share information. Hesitant to share wisdom. And so for me, I love being a fly in a room when I can. And then I take that information, I just go give it out.
No, I'm with you. I remember when I was doing the Library for London project, this was like about 8 to 10 years ago, and I was trying to get this library in my hometown, which is between Dinuba and Kingsburg. Yeah. And I remember kind of gathering information about how to get this thing done. And then in the end, I kind of had this binder. And I remember going to visit with some people. I don't remember exactly the situation, but I remember the message kind of was like, hey, hang on to that binder, protect that binder. And I was like, well, what do you mean? That's your value. And, you give away your value, now it's replicated and then it's no longer valuable. And I was like, well, that's exactly what I want. I want it to be replicated.
Yeah.
I want that my efforts for someone else to benefit, stand on each other's shoulders, because I stood on somebody else's.
Yeah.
And I just thought that was like a weird way of approaching information, because as a teacher, as educators, Jim also was an educator, right? Jim, like if we have a good lesson plan, the first thing we do is we call our peers and say, hey, check this out. This really worked for me in my classroom. Use it.
Yeah.
And so.
Yeah, but do you keep that?
What?
Do you keep that in that binder per se? That like I have a filing cabinet now.
Oh, of stuff that you learned?
Yeah.
Do you share it out?
Yes and no.
You charge
so
for the hour?
Here's the negative part of that is I lend it out to people that really need it. Some that I know that will take it for take the advantage of knowing and use it for their, and then brag that they did it.
Yeah.
That if I took your binder of your whole London Library thing, and then I started another thing and said, well, yeah, no, it was all me, and didn't give the credit to where that binder came from, that's fine. Now, going back to that, you still want to push positivity. You want to make someone, whoever you're working for, you want to make it, productive.
Well, I think in my head, I'd be like, well, okay, cool. I don't care that you got credit for it, but you brought another library to another community, right? So the end game was to serve that population.
But you always got to give credit where credit's due.
Yeah.
If you got it, you can't. That just taints the world the way it is now. You got to say, hey, this wouldn't have happened if I didn't learn that from what Robert had already started, or whatever. So, yeah, that's my thing.
Yeah, no, I agree with that too, because there's definitely that fine line. Because I think I'm in alignment with you, where if I see the need, I'm definitely just here. Like here's some good best practices.
Yeah.
You never give them the full keys to the car. You give them maybe the gas and things that they need, right?
But you've learned a lot from LA, so I'll
Yeah.
give you credit for that, because now you said it earlier, but I don't think you realize you have a ticket on. You have a kid now,
Yeah.
so now you have something to brag about the things that you've learned and what you're doing in your community now.
Yeah.
In front of your child.
Yeah.
So now it's not like, oh yeah, well daddy's going to do whatever he's going to do. It's like you have someone now looking at what you're doing, and hopefully you'll lead by example.
Yeah.
So you came home, had a kid, starting starting everything fresh in your own community. You learned it from LA. That's great, but now you're taking you took the reins. Now now you're doing it yourself in your own community.
Yeah. No, it's great, and being back in the Central Valley has been a blessing, and to that point, I've taken some of my students like on field trips, or we've done different.
Back to LA.
No, like, or even here, like when I've taken some of them from Reedley just to go to Dinuba and could go bowling.
Yeah.
Just because they felt safe going to Dinuba, and they can do that. And so, because I always ask them, like, where do you guys feel comfortable going? There's certain kids I can't take to Fresno, or certain kids I can't take to Sanger, right?
Yeah.
So I ask them, like, where do you guys feel comfortable going? So we can go to Dinuba.
Based on the gang affiliation.
Yeah. So I always ask them, I'm not, like, sometimes they're just like, we're going to this field trip, and then sometimes there's not a lot of thought into field trips.
Yeah.
And then they wonder why kids don't show up. So I ask them, like, well, where do you guys want to go? They had been just showing up to school. They've been doing really well. I wanted to reward them. And so we went to Dinuba, and I brought my family. I brought my girlfriend. I brought my baby, because I hope my son grows into me seeing this, or him seeing me do this work, because it's really humanizing. And the reality is, I work with people who come from a certain lifestyle that I come from, and my son's gonna say, oh, my grandpa was involved, or whatever the case, right? And that my dad works with these people in a different way, in a pro-social way, to really provide hope for them. And I hope my son doesn't go in this work. I hope he does something else, but that he takes the experiences and the lessons. And if he does want to stay doing this work, and by all means, I hope by that time we've built something that he can just carry the torch for. But I don't do it for that sake. I do it because I'm a big believer in just helping people for the sake of helping them. And a lot of times we're not going to sit underneath the shade of the tree of the seed that we planted.
Don't sit in the shade of the tree from the seed that you planted.
Yeah, because it's not going to.
Another one.
Yeah,
the bumper sticker.
Yeah, some people, when you work with a kid, you're not gonna, hopefully with me, me and Manny have these talks. Obviously I'm younger into the work. I turned 27 in August.
Oh wow!
So hopefully
you're very young.
Hopefully I get to see some finished trees, right?
Yeah.
But that's not the goal. Someone can take what I've taught them and go do something amazing, and I never hear about it. But as long as I know that they're not in the ground or behind, the jail cell, and
that's a win.
It's a win. And so I might not ever see it. I might not live to see it.
Yeah.
You never know. But the goal is not for me to be able to say I did that and pat myself on the back. So I'll never. My hope is to never sit under the shades of the trees from the seeds I planted.
like that. Wow, I like that.
Yeah.
I was talking about this with another guest last week, James Preston. I don't know if you met him. He's the Lemoore College president, and we don't always get to see, right, our seeds grow into full-grown trees or plants, whatever have you. And in our work, it's like, okay, I worked with this person. They're off in the world now. Hopefully it works out well. We don't always get to see that. Well, in this particular case, it was full circle because James Preston put together a program called 5C, and it's at the community college for 6th, 7th, and 8th graders. And then they have mentors who are high school graduates. So he put this program together, I want to say like 20 years ago when he first got there, right? And then the program grows and he moves on to other things. Well, my son happened to be a part of that program this summer as a mentor. And it kind of redefined him because he struggled through high school and now he's got a clean slate, like you going to LA. And now, he's coming back to himself. Jim, I don't know if you remember, I almost broke down crying in that.
Yeah, I think you did.
Yeah. Talking about that, right?
It was emotional.
And he got to see, one of his seeds that he planted pay out and affect my life in a very dramatic way. So every now and then, right, it does happen. Do you ever run into some of the people that you worked with when they were younger and now see them thriving?
Yeah. No, I've seen some. Now they're doing their thing. They're working in construction, or they got themselves a little side hustle, and they're staying afloat. And
How do they reference you?
a lot of them call me Mister.
Oh,
Even
Mr. Garcia, or
they just call me Mister.
oh, hey, Mister.
Yeah, hey, Mister. And then it's funny because I'm not too much older than all them. Either.
Yeah,
Some of
you're
them-
young.
Yeah,
You're a young person.
I'm like 10 years older than some of them.
Yeah.
And they're, hey, Mister. And then the ones that have graduated. I had one that graduated from high school not too long ago, about 2 years ago already, and they're doing commercial fishing out in Alaska.
Oh, what?
And I was like, dang fool, you went from
It's a reality show.
Yeah, you went from a homie out here, now you're just out here fishing. He's like, I like it, bro. It's peaceful. I get the beauty to myself. I don't have to worry about
Yeah.
anything. There's just water all around me, and I'm just fishing. I'm out for a couple months. I come back home with about 20, 40, 60 racks, depending on how long I'm out there.
Wow.
And I just get to do my own thing. I'm like, that's beautiful. And he found what works for him, because some people, they say like, I want to do something, but I can't stay here. Like people end up having to move around to,
Yeah.
avoid violence or just avoid tension. And he's like, for me, I just wanted to be alone. And what better place than just fishing and making
The wilderness.
Yeah, making a lot of money and coming back, months at a time, and just coming home with money, something to show for it. And I was like, hey man, and
That's a
he
beautiful
tapped
thing.
into his strengths.
Wow. So I want to make sure that at the end of this, in our description, we include this. I'm going to repeat it one more time. Reedley Peacebuilding Initiative.
Yes, Reedley Peacebuilding Initiative, and I'll touch on that briefly because just for the sake of time. So I've been on for about a year, and what I did implement, they had the restorative justice process. So whenever an individual would, pick up a case, whether within the school or the community, they did a lot of lower grade stuff at the time.
Yeah.
Maybe a couple fights, maybe some vape pens on campus or whatever the case may be, but they're missing the mark with some of the gang involved students. And they'd get sent off to the continuation and eventually just kind of just outcasted, right? And so they didn't have, necessarily the program built to really work with those students. So in this past year, just bringing my expertise that I brought from LA, I've been building out the gang intervention program. And so we've done things where if I have kids on probation, I'm helping them with their community service. I'm plugging them into places that based on their strengths. I'm a big strengths person. I'm always strength based. I had kids who got in trouble for tagging, and people are like, oh, he's a gangster, he tags. I was like, I see a great artist right there. I think different. I think strength based. I was like, yeah, let's guide it in a pro social way. We don't want you tagging here. We'll deal with that. We'll restore that. We have our process to rectify that. But I want to work on that strength. And so I don't know if you saw one of the students I've been bringing to CVLLA.
Oh, he's part of the program?
Yeah, well, he's volunteering, setting up, and he's just getting to be a fly on the wall and see something
Yeah.
differently. 'Cause he's a great leader.
He presented.
Yeah.
And he stayed after helping with everything.
Yeah, and then
Wow.
and then you see him amongst his peers, his homies, and he's like, "Hey, bro, cut that out." And like, and I see that the way he works with his peers. He's
Correcting
a leader.
them.
He's a leader even within that, and he's a leader
Oh.
in a pro social way. Whether for better or for worse, his intentions are, "Hey, bro, cut it out. You're gonna bring too much heat," or "Cut it out, bro. Like we're trying to chill right now." And they respond to him. So he carries those traits, and I was like, let's guide it in a pro social way. So
Yeah.
I try to work on what their strengths are, plug them in places that they can see different opportunities.
Yeah.
And if the pipeline is in to go to college, or if their pipeline is to go into the workforce, that they know who they are a bit more, versus just like, this is what I am, that's what I'm always gonna be, and they don't have a sense of hope. But a lot of these kids, I'm just trying to build some hope with. And then
Oh man, that totally redefines that moment. I remember you guys had him read something
yeah,
or present something to all of us at the Central Valley Latinos Leadership Academy.
Yeah.
At the cohort, we were in Fresno City. He was in the classroom. I remember him now.
yeah.
Dang, what an impactful experience for him.
Yeah, he gets to go out there, and we're paying him. We're giving him a stipend just for
Yes.
volunteering. So he's like, and it was a trip because he works out in the fields too. And then those Saturdays he's going, we paid him, and he's like, I would have made less at the fields today. I was like, you'll learn. I worked in the fields as well. We it's the fact that we come from those beginnings
Yeah.
that we want more than that too. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
I'll never disrespect those who are still working there. But now you get to see something different, because those that are still working there want us to be here.
Yeah.
Especially using the opportunities that we have. And so, really teaching them that, hey, like in these spaces, we pay you for what you bring to the table, not so much, not how many crates you can fill up with oranges and stuff, or how many bags you have to carry on your neck, right? I
We don't measure you by the pound.
Yeah, that's admirable. I think we used to call it field therapy when we started getting into trouble and stuff.
Yeah.
My tia would just take me out to the field and we call it field therapy.
Yeah, right. This is the next option.
You know what I mean? And so,
Field therapy. I like that.
it's definitely
Eye opener. Huh?
it's an eye opener, and it's a critical life moment for those living in the valley to get to
Yeah.
work in the fields and what you see, because it's also not it's hard work.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people struggling out there too with substance abuse, and that's not talked about. As an adult now, or as a kid, I was like, how do these guys come at 4 in the morning? They work until 5, 6, 7 in the afternoon. It's like, well, they're having a good time. We'll just say that. You know what I mean?
Wow.
Yeah,
I never even thought of that.
Yeah, my time, you see drug usage, you see obviously alcoholism, but then there's also this weird sense of just pure happiness, because you see people that are tired, but they're just laughing, having a good time, and they're providing for their family. So it's like that duality, because it's like, yeah, this is bad, but this is good, and then you just see like it's just human, and I carry that with me when I work with people that they call gangsters and menaces to society. I'm like, no, there's some great people. There's some great people. I came from that background. I come from that culture. I know how to navigate it. And I see beauty in it. And not to where maybe some folks don't, and that's fine. But that's why they're not in the work that I'm in, and I get to just be that gray area person for them. So that way, when we can prevent the cases in restorative justice, like I was telling you earlier. So with my intervention, it's proactive, so it's voluntary. I have kids that are willingly. We have a community garden. I have more kids doing it voluntarily just for fun, for something to do, than I have those just doing it to fulfill their probation requirement. So I think I have like
that speaks volumes.
About
right
60,
there.
about 60
when you
hours.
Choose to be somewhere.
About 60 hours are probation mandated for some of the kids, but I think we have like 100 hours, just kids wanting to go for the sake of going and having a good time.
Dang. They found a new tribe.
Yeah, found a new tribe, and and they still keep in touch with their friends. Hey, bro, and then what it does is it's easier when you work with the parents that way, and they get to see it, because growing up with parents, and especially in our communities, they're always just like they're heavy-handed in the sense that I don't want you around these kids, these little pandilleros. I don't want. And it's hard when someone's 16 and you're telling him to change his friend group. It's impossible.
Like, those are my friends. We go to school together.
And then you're gonna wonder why he runs away, why he doesn't want to come home.
Yeah.
But now I could just say, hey, like, Señora, I'm his case manager, and we do this, and all his friends that you're hesitant about, they're here too. But we're doing a garden. We're having a good time, and it's that compromise where it's building that trust with that family or that parent.
Yeah.
They'll go to work on the garden. He gets to have his friends, but he gets to have them in this space. It's a safe environment, so they don't have to worry about whoever's going to be passing by them, right? And so it creates an opportunity for everybody to have a win-win situation.
Man, so continue to do that work. I get to see you at least 3 more times, right, with the Central Valley Latino Leadership Academy. So I appreciate the knowledge that you're sharing with us. And is there a way, if people wanted to support your program, is it nonprofit or is it through grants? Is there a way that people can support that where we can put a link?
Yeah, definitely. What you can do, so I'm hired through CYM, which is Community Youth Ministries.
Yes.
They're kind of our fiscal agent, but they're the nonprofit. So what they do is they do a lot of different ELP programs as well, but they also they cover restorative justice. And so
if we give to them, that goes to you guys.
Yeah, we can. It'll go allocated to restorative justice, and then also, I can include my LLC as well.
Absolutely, we want to put everything on there.
Yeah. So
got that one.
Yeah. So
we got one here.
Community First Initiative. That's my LLC. I do a lot of direct services. I provide training to school districts because, like I said, like some teachers they just see a kid and then for what they are, or admin. And so I work with school districts. I worked with nonprofits to build out programming for this population. And definitely always looking for funding sources with that, because with that comes opportunities to provide resources for these young folks as well. So I can include that as well.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Andrew Garcia, for being on the show.
Thank you.
In the new studio, thank you, CMAC, for all of this. Juan Tafoya, our master marketing digital guru. Thank you for being present with us today. Jim, we did it.
Yeah, came out really good.
Yeah, let's see how it goes, right?
Yeah.
So until next time, you guys don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoy what we're doing. Support it. If you love what Andrew's talking about and you want to support the work he's doing, we'll have links in the description of today's episode so you can support that work, right? It's one thing to say, hey, people are doing great work, but when you put your dollars behind what people are doing, right, you truly show an investment. So please invest in programs like Andrew's. Until next time, this is Rob, Jim, Juan, Andrew saying love, peace, and chicken grease. We out.